So this one's
hopefully new. Let's move on.
Yep, yeah, I'm going to go on to minimum entitlements.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
obviously there's heaps of money in here for the growing prison population. I guess what I'm keen to know about is the quality of that custody and making sure that every person who moves through the corrections network receives their minimum entitlements. And obviously at the end of last year, your predecessor had to go to the High Court because corrections was not meeting minimum entitlements, which builds on the lack of minimum entitlements afforded to people during COVID, which, you know, potentially understandable. But anyway, what confidence can you give us that within this big appropriation, every prisoner will have their minimum entitlements met?
Well, I can't give you a cast iron assurance that every minimum entitlement will be met, because we have got a growing prison population that brings additional challenges every day in terms of managing that. But we have a world-class corrections service that is able to do that. My focus and my priority as the incoming minister was staff safety, and that will remain the priority. Is that we've got outstanding Kiwis that turn up every day and do an extremely difficult job that most of us probably couldn't do in a very, very challenging environment with some of the most difficult, complex and violent people that society has. So we will always strive and always try to do our best around delivering minimum entitlements. We've got such a transparent system that you've got people that go in there and audit, check that and hold us to account. And corrections are very good at being able to actually identify and see what changes need to be made. But if you're asking for a cast iron assurance that every minimum entitlement will be met, no, I cannot do that. And I'll reinforce again that in our corrections system, that my priority is quite simply staff safety.
What can I ask, like, what is your understanding of minimum entitlements? Like, what do you think they are?
Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's a set of entitlements that are deemed to be or put forward as being a minimum set of entitlements. And by the way, corrections will often exceed and go beyond minimum entitlements. That doesn't often get reported, or that's not visible, but that is often what they do. But it's a set of standards that we can work to, and corrections do that in good faith. Perhaps, Rachel, you could expand on that.
And there are a number of minimum entitlements that are sort of also have a predication of we're reasonably practical. Obviously, 1 hour of exercise in the open air is not one of those ones that's where practicable. This is something that we must do and we must accommodate. That's an area where we've really been focused. As the Minister said, and the vast majority of people in New Zealand prisons will absolutely have an excess of 1 hour. But there are a small number where that has been proven to be a little bit more difficult for particular reasons regarding their own safety and the safety risks that they have to others. I would say, before I just pass over to Sean Mason, who's our Commissioner for Custodial Services, that the budget is funding staffing appropriately to manage the minimum entitlements, right? So that is the most important thing that the government is doing. So we are making sure that we have staff in order to facilitate minimum entitlements. The Minister, one of his priorities, of course, he's already mentioned, is that we have appropriate staffing for the capacity that we have. So that is the commitment that we have to ensure that we are doing that. And Sean, do you want to talk a little bit about what you've been doing around the minimum entitlements, particularly related to 1 hour of exercise?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, Committee. Sean Mason, Commissioner for Custodial Services. There's a number of things we are clear on now, particularly since the mandamus ruling in December, and therefore committed to ensuring that we're delivering minimum entitlements every day. It's not without challenge. There are a number of reasonable accommodations that we took prior to the hearing and since to be able to accommodate changes with regimes and with rosters and such like, to ensure that the infrastructure and the regime are coherent of one another. One of the key aspects is improving our record keeping. There are a number, as the Minister said and as Rachel said, there are a number of justifiable and lawful reasons as to why a minimum entitlement either can't or won't be delivered. But it's implicit upon corrections to ensure that our record keeping is accurate. What's pleasing is that since Since the ruling, there hasn't been any systemic non-compliance that's been issued, but we, as an executive leadership team collectively, are all dialed in on the importance of minimum entitlements being regarded as a right and not a privilege, to the extent where I personally just recently have engaged every general manager, every deputy general manager, every residential manager and every senior advisor at every prison in the country to make it clear what the expectations were. Prior to the mandamus order, there was interpretations in practice. It's very clear, and it's been made very clear to those operational leaders every day. But so I am clear, there will continue to be reasons where minimum entitlements are lawfully delivered.
Yeah, and that's the key. Carefully, like you say, there are reasons why sometimes it can't be met, but that's an absolute minimum, and that's tied to human rights.
Correct.
And you don't give up your human rights because you go to prison.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And people are treated with dignity and respect in our system. We should be proud of that. So what
Okay,
thing
we're
to
going
do?
to go